All right. Thank you. Thank you for the opportunity. My name is Senthil, and I've set up this organization called International Indian Folk Art Gallery. And I believe that what you guys are doing at Indic Studies is extremely important. In a way, it's very similar to what we are doing with art, but I think you're looking at the overall Indian culture and civilization. We are focused on a very small portion of that part, which is more on the art side. And what I'll do is I'll show you the agenda for today, and then we'll leave some time for questions as well. So what I've taken here is I will do a quick introduction about myself and my journey and how I ended up with folk arts. And then I'll kind of explain what is folk art by definition, how we see it. And then we talk about the endangered part of the folk arts. And then we'll leave some questions and answers and some feedback in the end. I have planned for around, let's say, 40 minutes session. And we can leave maybe on 5, 10 minutes, 15 minutes, depending on how many questions we have. So let's get started. So like it was introduced, I did finish my engineering. I did my engineering in electrical and electronics field. I finished in Shastra University, which was Shanmuga College of Engineering when it's called before, in 92. And left India around 94 for a job, pretty much got a job and had to leave. And since then, I've been outside of India, but I've been traveling to India every year, almost every year. I'm currently settled in Melbourne, Australia. I got 2 kids, and we've been here for some time now. So I do have 2 jobs. The first job is my job from the engineering point of view. I work for a Swedish company as a regional manager for Asia Pacific. At the same time, I also have a evening job or a weekend job where actually I run this organization called International Indian Folk Art Gallery. So we'll talk about a little bit also in later slides. And if you look at my journey for art, I started this very early in the childhood, around maybe 8, 9 years. So started picking up doing some sketches. Loved doing cartoons and caricatures when I was a kid. And I've tried with different mediums, try to find ways of creating something interesting, funny at that stage. And as I get more and more, let's say, support and encouragement, I started to build that over a period of time. So, but my favorite was the more around realism, which is portrait and realistic paintings. So I did oil, I've done acrylic, watercolors, pencil. So there's, and of course, after a long time, I had opportunity to, because my job is traveling job. So I didn't have a lot of time to sit and do a lot of, let's say, painting and coloring. But after I got this opportunity, because of COVID, the travel completely stopped. So then I took the opportunity to go back and do a lot of work around painting and exploring new, let's say, fields. So if I want to go back and connect to the folk art, my folk art journey started probably around 92 when I finished my engineering. And before, let's say, found a job, I actually had an opportunity to learn Tanjore painting. And I got opportunity to learn from Tanjore painting from the master guru, Sri Venkatesa Raja. So he also received national award and also was awarded the award, which is the highest award, is Shilpa Guru. And then he also received, of course, the national award for art and craft. So for me, I didn't know, of course, when I got the training from him, when I spent some time with, I didn't know, of course, he got the awards. But that was my first experience with folk arts of India, right? And what I found was it was not so easy to learn folk arts. So when I was trying to do this, in fact, I would have done this in almost year 90, when there was a need for to create a painting for one of our, let's say, friends. And we couldn't find a guru to teach. It took almost 2 years to find the guru. And when I found the guru, of course, there was a little bit of, let's say, when you're looking for the guru, then there's a lot of, let's say, reluctance to teach, because people are learning this from their father or from their mother. So it's like it gets passed on from one generation next generation. So it is not easy to go to school or go to an institute and then learn the art. So that was my experience, that it was not so easy for anyone to go and learn. I'm talking about 30 years back, right? Now there's a lot of information on the YouTube. Some are right, some are wrong, but there is a lot of information available. So it's more like a tightly kept secret. So people try to do their own versions of the Tanjore paintings. And then what we see now is, of course, different variations of Tanjore paintings. Some people do it looking at, like I said, YouTube. And of course, there are people who are learning it proper with under the instructions of gurujis and so on. So that was my experience, that I took the opportunity to learn folk art from the guru. And then I'm also been teaching kids, and I have an online platform. We call it as Gurukulam, and we have a very structured way of teaching the art to anybody who wants to learn Tanjore paintings. So that was kind of my first experience with folk arts. And if you look at Tanjore painting, it's almost 400 years art, and it has evolved into something which is, I'll go into a little bit more detail in the coming slides. I did, of course, learn something new. I did some Kerala murals, Madhu Bani. That was something which I also learned during the couple of years now. And that is how I bumped into what actually is missing in most of the art and culture outside of the small pockets of what we see. So when I started exploring this, I had the opportunity to talk to my guru. And then I found that the art is really in bad times. And the pandemic actually has made it worse. The problem with the folk arts is it is very confined to local situations. If it's a temple or it's a tourist place, then these art are linked to those places. So if tourists are not coming, if you're not going to those places, then it's very difficult for them to sell. And most of these artists are not, let's say, high tech. They don't have the infrastructure to learn. They don't have the infrastructure to, let's say, when I talk about learn, I'm talking about how to create websites and how to sell online and so on. So most of this, they don't have the infrastructure. So what has happened is they have a big gap between the modern way of selling art and the way they're currently doing today. So my idea was, okay, let's go and find a way to help the artist. So I started with the Tanjore painting, which is where I started. But then I found that all the folk arts in India are having the same problem. They don't have a good market to sell. If no one is coming to their shop, that means they don't have a customer. So the idea was, okay, how can we take this outside of their small place and spread it across India, spread it outside of India? And that's why we said, okay, let's put a small project together to create a platform for folk arts. So, but at the same time, I also did a lot of research in terms of folk arts. What is available in the market? How is the current situation with the artist? And I found that more than 52 folk arts. Now, if I go back since the 12 months, it's actually more than 1,700 folk arts now. And these are small tribes or communities who have been doing this from generation to generation. Unfortunately, they don't have the reach to go outside of their place. And the interesting thing was when I spoke to the Guruji, and I found that they don't want to be in this business anymore. They actually want to stop their kids doing what they're doing. And when I look at that situation, I see, okay, this is coming coming to an end, and we must do something about this. And that's how we started the process of setting up infrastructure to help artists get a platform. People who want to learn, they can come and learn in a structured way, and so on. So that's basically what we have done. We have created a platform where you can learn the folk arts. We're adding courses and let's say both paid and free courses into the platform, so anyone can learn. And the learning is very similar to the way you learn in schools and universities. It's very structured. So you have assignments, you have step-by-step guidance on how to do things, how to do step-by-step different processes of the creating arts. And then we also have what we call the event management this is mainly for running competition and exhibitions. You can have the best art, but if you don't know how to present to the audience, it becomes difficult to explore. So we said, okay, let's look at how do we take this to the customers, take to the art lovers in India and outside of India. So we created a kind of complete infrastructure to help promote this outside of India and within India. So we just had our first one in Mumbai, the exhibition for this year after the pandemic, and we got a few more lined up for this year. Then, of course, we have a e-commerce website which makes it easy to sell artworks. So this is our next, what we call as endangered folk arts of India. The one we are planning now in Bangalore is the largest exhibition and workshop at Karnataka Chitrakathi Maharashtra from 16th to 19th. So basically, that was my introduction of who I am, how my journey started, and what we're doing as an organization. And now I'd like to go into a little bit of detail into what is folk art. So if you look at folk art, it is a form of, if you go back, let's say if you take away internet, and which means your way of entertaining in the evenings, watching maybe Netflix or Amazon Prime, whatever is the medium of getting yourself entertained on the phone, that's gone. If you remove internet, right? If you remove television, then of course there are all the serials and all the movies that you get, that also gets removed. So if you just keep removing all those things, you end up with no medium to entertain yourself. So that was the kind of situation with ancient India, where they had, of course, no internet, no electricity. So the best way of entertaining was basically with art, and folk art is a medium for entertainment. And with folk art, of course, they would bring their own culture. So if you are looking at a folk art in West Bengal, they will bring their own cultural identity into that art. If you come to South India, they'll have their own way of doing it. If you come to on the Western side, it'll be something similar. So the stories were similar, but you'll always have influence of the local cultures into those stories and that in the techniques. So that included, which means they will have art combined with music, dance, and that was the way they were entertaining. So there is a complete community. Their only job was to entertain. So they will go from one place to next place, and they will entertain. So that is how the ancient Indian, let's say, enjoyed their free time. And the art were very simple. So it will tell stories. It will be very simple, and it will be very expressive, which means the emotions are very easy to pick up, and you can understand the art in very simple ways. And most of the time, there is no qualification. You don't need a qualification. You don't need a degree. So you just learn from your parents, your mother, your father, and then it gets passed on to the next generation. So that's kind of we're talking about folk arts. So Like I said, there are more than 52 folk arts, but it will be difficult for me to go to all the 52 today. I'm just going to give you an overview. I'm going to start with something which is very, very common. Probably you must have heard of it. And then I'm going to talk about some which most people have not heard of it. So just give an idea of the journey. So this is how I'm going to start with some popular ones. So from South, Tanjore paintings. So Tanjore paintings are, let's say, got popular, or the peak was probably around 16th century, which was kind of supported by the Maratha Empire. And then also you had the influence of Sarfoji Maharaja, who played an important role to revive it back. And then I think since then, it was kind of up and down, but most people know Tanjore paintings. And the thing which actually is significant with Tanjore painting is actually made of gold, 22 karat, 24 karat gold. And in the olden days, they would use semi-precious stones or precious stones, but now they use glass. In most of the cases, glass stones. But it's extremely beautiful art, and also is used as a for puja rooms. So in most, let's say, for doing pujas in the houses. So Tanjore painting is in South is extremely popular, and also it's also popular outside of, let's say, Tamil Nadu. Then the other one is Warli paintings. Warli has got a lot of popularity with not only in India but also outside of India. And this is also around 3,000 years old form. It started with cave paintings. So if you look at the way it's structured, it is very, very similar to what you see in cave paintings. The figures are very simple, and most of the stories are around nature. And the figure, the drawing of figures are very simple. You have this triangular way of expressing figures. So a male will have a higher, to see if you look at the male and female, they're drawn with a higher, bigger triangle, and the females are drawn with the smaller triangles. So most of them are joined in the center to depict a particular figure, male or female. And most of the art forms here are talking about animals, plants, farming, weddings, and ceremonies, and so on. So this is Warli from Maharashtra, very, very common, also one of the oldest paintings. The next one is Madhu Bani. Madhu Bani, of course, most people also know. It comes from Bihar. And what you see is, what we're seeing here is a Madhu Bani, which is a Barni style. And unfortunately, not all the styles of Madhu Bani are known. So you have Kachni style, you have Tantric, Godna, and Kobar. There are 5 distinct styles. But the Barni style, which means Barni means filling colors. This is very common in Madhu Bani. And because it's very colorful, it's very attractive. And also there's been a lot of, let's say, promotion with, let's say, people like Sita Devi and other people who have been very, let's say, taking this on, promoting it outside of Bihar. And it has got a very good, let's say, attention, and is also very sought out kind of painting. Then if I look at the other one, which is also very quite common and known, is Gond painting from Madhya Pradesh. Gond paintings are very similar to, in terms of the connection with nature, like Warli is very much connected to nature. And this is the Gond tribe from Madhya Pradesh, and that is how it evolved. And the thing which is significance of this painting is mainly done with dots and dashes, short lines, and they create patterns around this. And also, if you look at this very closely, the animals and plants, they're always connected. So in this case, you have the deer and the tree, they're connected. And it's one way of them expressing the balance between nature and the animals and people around. And most of the animals you will see is what we call as soft animals. They don't have ferocious animals. They don't show lion or other animals which is actually ferocious. That's what I mean. So more like soft animals you'll see and go on the paintings. The other one, which is very common in India and also outside of India, is Pattachitra paintings. Pattachitra, as the name it says, Patta means cloth, Chitra means painting. So it's Pattachitra is a colorful painting done on cloth. And there's a lot of similarities between Pattachitra and also like Tanjore painting, because the material they use to create the base is very similar. So they use tamarind here. They also use tamarind in Tanjore painting to create the base, and then they actually start doing the paintings on top of that. But this is on cloth, and Tanjore paintings are done on wooden canvas. Here it is purely cloths. And what they do is they use primarily 4 colors: red, yellow, white, and black. And black is taken from oil lamp. You burn the oil, and then you collect the black from the oil, and then you create the paint. For yellow, they take stones. It's called harital pattar, which is like a yellow stone. They grind it and create the color out of that, and then they mix it with the gum to create the paint. For white, they use seashells, and then they are in the process of taking white out of that and produce. So most of the things they use for coloring is natural colors. So that's Pattachitra. And what you see normally is you see the stories of Ramayana or Mahabharata or Krishna Leela, which is Krishna's story from, and you'll have different episodes of that. And this is how they will actually explain in the previous. This could go for maybe 6 feet long, 20 to 15 feet long, and that's how they explain the stories of Hindu, like the Mahabharata and Ramayana, to the audience. So if I want to maybe show some of the less known folk arts, this one is called as Chitrakathi. Again, Chitra means painting, Kathi means story, right? So Chitrakathi is someone who actually is telling the stories. So they will put this painting in front of the audience, and they will sing, they will dance, and then they will tell the stories of. This is from Maharashtra, and the people who actually do this is called mainly Thakar tribe, and they're like wandering musicians. They'll walk around the state, one place to other place, take these rolls of paintings with them, and then put it up, and then tell the stories. Chitrakathi. There are very, very few people in the world doing this now. I would say less than 50 families. So whatever you're going to see now is going to be less than 50 families. Yeah. The other one is Rogan art. It's coming from Kutch, Gujarat. It's very similar to textile printing technique, but it's very, very complicated. So what you do is you take oil, and then you make it into a thick liquid by just boiling it on slow simmer, and then you mix with the colors and create a kind of a very sticky a thread, and that thread is actually used to create designs. This is around 400 years old. It's been influenced more from Persia into India, and very much, let's say, took off during the Mughal Empire. And most of the people doing this actually is a Muslim community from Kutch. And I would say there's hardly 2 or 3 families left now doing this art. Mathani Pachedi. This is from Gujarat. This is basically, it means is Pachedi means behind. The Mata means God, right? It's behind the God. So it's more like a draping cloth. The story behind this is there is a community called Wagri community in Gujarat who would actually worship the Mata, but because they're kind of low caste, they were not allowed to go inside the temple. So what they did, they created their own paintings like this, and they would actually worship Mata from there. And that's how it became into what we see today. Extremely beautiful work. It's again a cloth-based painting. It's very similar to South, what we call as kalamkari paintings. In South, we have kalamkari. In Gujarat, you have the Matani Pachedi painting. It's very similar techniques on how you do this. And it's also done with bamboo sticks to do the sketching and coloring. The next one is from Rajasthan, Phad painting. This is probably around 700 years old. And this is very similar to what we talked before, Pattachitra. It's like a storytelling, scroll painting. And you have a lot of stories going arranged in like a strips, like film strips. And this is mainly carried by priests. So they would take this with them. They'll sing the song. And the stories will be mainly around the gods from Rajasthan, like Babuji and Devnarayan, and these will be drawn on the entire strips. These could be somewhere around 30 feet long, the entire story, and these are mainly done with vegetable colors. So if you look at who does Phad painting, again, less than 10 families, 15 families who are doing Phad paintings now. Again, a very, very sensitive, beautiful art, but not a lot of, let's say, families following this art anymore. Aipan Art, this is from Uttarakhand. And it was actually founded by what you call the Chand dynasty, Rajput, and around 10th century. So this is more like you do this for bringing good luck. So if you look at this, it's very similar to what you see in South India, a kolam or rangoli. So you do this with they will put the cow dung and then they'll use rice powder. In South, they use powder. Here they use more like a rice mixed, like a liquid, and then they draw the different designs. And they believe that this actually, when you do in the entrance of the house, it brings good luck and prosperity to the people who live in that house. So very much endangered art because no one is doing that anymore. Okay, and then the next one, which is very unknown, I would say very few families, again, I would say less than 10 families doing this, is Sanjhi Art. This was, the story of this is actually, we look at Radha Krishna stories, right? So here, what happens is, it seems Radha would actually, Sanjhi means nothing but decoration. So it's actually a way of decorating. So they will use, in this case, they use, of course, scissors or some sharp object to cut designs out. So the story is Radha would actually create these designs and hang it in the front of the house. So when Krishna is passing by, so he would actually be happy to see this. So it's kind of attracting. So all the Gopikas and Radhas, they'll create this in Mathura as a way of making Krishna happy. So, and this has been going on. So this is a very, very, very old tradition and still followed by some families. I think when I spoke to the artist Ashutosh Verma, there are only 3 families left now who are doing this art. Extremely beautiful art, and again needs some, let's say, revival. Madhya Pradesh, Bhil painting. Now this one is interesting. This one is very closely linked to the art that we see in Australia. It's very similar to Aboriginal arts of Australia. And there's also a link, if you go back thousands of years back, there is a lot of link between Australia and India. So the Gond painting and Bhil paintings of Madhya Pradesh have got the connection. And if you look at the dot, it's the distinctive part of this is got a lot of dots style paintings, which also you'll see in Aboriginal art in Australia. And this is a community called Bhil, a tribal community. and they also live in jungles, and they create these beautiful paintings. And again, less than 20 families are doing this now. This Bhil painting, not very common, very, very, very beautiful paintings. Most people, when you talk about Bihar, of course, the common thing comes is Madhu Bani, right? This is Manjusha painting. Manjusha is again folk art from a place called Bhagalpur in Bihar. And this was done by a community called Malakhar communities. And Malakhar in Sanskrit, I think it means box. And the boxes are made of bamboo and straws. And what they'll do is they'll actually paint this on top of the box. And this will be where they keep all the important puja items, prayer items. And that's the main purpose of this paintings. And this is actually, most of this community actually worships snakes. So what you see is mainly the snake god. I think it's, they call it as Bishari Puja, which is nothing but prayer to the snake god. And these were drawn on the boxes. And of course, now you can see in canvases now, but primarily that was the main purpose of this Manjusha paintings. Again, they use 3 or 4 colors mainly. They don't use more than that. Other one, which is very old, probably I would say 5,000 years old, is Dokra art of Odisha. And here the techniques is you use metals to create artworks. And if you look, there is a difference between the one which is done in Odisha and this very similar one also done in South. Here, what you see is, I think that this one has got a hollow, and the one which you see in South is not hollow. So that it's like a tube. So this one is more like a tube. And you create different features, and mainly around song and dance. You'll also have nomadic kind of expressions in this arts. And the people who actually coming from where it originated have traveled from Jharkhand to, let's say, West Bengal and the east of Odisha, and they also have gone down to south. So you'll see the very similarity in terms of this style, but it originated from more from what we call as Dokra region. The other one, which is very similar to Warli, is Saura painting. But the interesting thing is actually Saura painting was before Warli. So there is a lot of, let's say, research which says that people have adapted the Saura painting in Warli. So of course, the difference is in Warli, you have a very strict geometrical shapes. In Saura painting, it's a little bit roundish shapes. Of course, there's no difference between male and female in Saura painting. In Warli, you have you can see the difference between male and female. Males are a little bit bigger. The top part of the triangle is bigger, which is upside down. And in Saura painting, it's also same, but it's not bigger. It's very similar in size. And again, most of the paintings in Saura, they show the life of the Saura people. They talk about farming, they talk about fishing, they talk about harvest, and so on. So it's very, for a normal person, it will be difficult to identify between Saura and Warli. Also, the coloring is a little bit more colorful in Saura. In Warli is more like a monochrome paintings. Okay. The other one is the miniature paintings of Assam. These are done on tree bark. So you take a bark of the tree, and then you would actually prepare the surface. And here they use the fruit glue mixed with the vegetable colors, and then you'll paint. And this is also quite old, around 16th century, kind of where it actually took off. And originally it used to be done on ivory, ivories and woods, or small pieces of metals and paper. And again, a very diminishing, let's say, art. Very few people do this now. Kalighat painting, like the name says, Kalighat. It's actually um, uh, originated from, of course, West Bengal, but most of the art is around Kali, which is goddess Durga, I think, and they painted on the cloths. So the way it started was mainly, if you go to temple, there'll be on a lot of shops, and they'll have this kind of paintings around the shops. And slowly, when people, the pilgrims or the devotees will come, and they will buy this to take home. Right, that's how it started. And of course, it has now moved into much more mediums, different mediums. So you have now this in canvases and other mediums. You use, let's say, acrylic and other mediums to do this now. Again, the belief is that when you have a Kalighat painting, it brings good luck and prosperity to the house. Very, very common in West Bengal. Now moving south, Cheriyal painting. Also exactly the same story like we've seen before, storytelling. You have strips of stories, and these will also be like 45 feet long, 40 feet long cloths, 3 feet wide. And you'll have a strip which goes starting maybe from the birth of Krishna, and then it will go all the way with the different episodes. And so what they will do is they'll take this to the audience, and they'll talk about the stories. They'll have songs attached to it. They'll have dance, and they'll entertain the audience. And this is now, we got around 7 families who are doing this now. Outside in the entire world now. Most of the people are sitting around Hyderabad area. And the stories will be again around Ramayana and Mahabharata, kind of epic folk stories. This one is quite interesting because this was made on leather. And this art also got I think the best way that this one was more done challenges because of animal rights issues. So there's a lot of misconception that this leather, they're killing animals to create art. In fact, what happened was these are actually the leather which is used for this puppetry is actually taken from the goat, which is used for slaughterhouses, and that skin they use it to create. So it's not actually any animals, right? This is a goat but this has come to a lot of scrutiny, and the people of the entire industry, which was into this puppet art, has almost disappeared because of. But now there is a lot of support from the government to encourage, but there's not a lot of skilled people to do this now. So here again, the stories are around Ramayana, Mahabharata, and they have this puppetry which is pure leather. The way they do that is they buy this goat skin from the slaughterhouses, they clean it up, and then beat it into a thin canvases, dry it up, and then once it is fully dry, then they use it as a canvas to draw with natural colors, and then they use it for telling stories. So you'll have, let's say in this case is Hanuman, you'll have Rama, you have other characters, and they'll bring this all together for showing and entertaining the audience. It's still happening now. So there are some places with still a couple of families left now who are doing this, but a lot of people have left this industry. The last one which I wanted to share was the reverse glass Tanjore paintings. So when we say Tanjore paintings, mostly people think about the one I showed in the previous slides with stones. And this is a kind of technique which actually a lot of people say that came from China to India, but it actually came from Europe to China, from China to India around 16th and 17th century. This was more like a low-cost alternative for the Tanjore paintings. So people who wanted to have Tanjore paintings but could not afford the one with stones and all those things, they would actually buy this, commission this, get these paintings. So what in this, the way this was done is actually you do the entire composition in reverse order. So when you paint something, you do the sketching, then you do the coloring, you do the shading, and then do the lining. But here, do the opposite. You do the lining, and then you go backwards to get the same effect. So actually, it's very, very difficult because you have to mentally think about how it will appear in the end, and then work backwards. So again, it's not a very easy technique, and very, very few people know how to do this now. So reverse glass Tanjore painting from Tamil Nadu is also the brink of extinction. So that is my kind of overview of different types of arts, but I've only shown you, I think, 10, 15 folk arts, but we have more than 50, or I would say even 70, 100, I don't know. Every time I have a discussion with artists, they come from a different tribe, and they have their own painting, which actually has been going for ages. So the more we discover, the more paintings we find. So I think we may have 100 folk arts that is still unknown and haven't been discovered, and it's dying because it's not being discovered and promoted. So just to give a flavor, that was my idea of giving this presentation, to give a flavor of different folk arts, both known, unknown, and there is some which we don't even know. So for me, if I want to summarize this, let's say, like I said, there's probably more than 100 folk arts, which includes tribal arts. But every art has got its own unique style and significance. So most of them, of course, are linked to the Indian, let's say, culture and civilization and mythologies. Main purpose was to entertain people. Of course, it has transformed to coming into the houses more for decoration. Some of the art forms are more than 3,000 years old. And if you look at the trend when it actually was highest in terms of acceptance and popularity, it was around the 16th and 18th century. And then it started to die. So it just kind of, I would say since the 18th century, it's just going on. And there's been, since the colonization is what actually I mean, that the decline has happened. And these beautiful paintings are kind of slowly disappearing. And I would say with more and more artists not taking this profession, it's very obvious that if we don't do anything about this art, the likelihood of this surviving to the next generation is going to be very slim. So from our side, we see this as a major issue from the art community, that if we, as an art community, if we don't do something now, then the next generation will not have anything left to see. So this is my personal opinion of why it is dying. Like I said, this is like a storytelling, right? So the functional need of storytelling entertainment has ended. We don't need someone to tell us stories with folk arts, right? So basically, there's no need. We want to watch Netflix. You want to watch, go to theaters, get ourselves entertained. So that part of that need has gone. So of course, the other one is the transition of skills. Like my experience, it was very difficult to learn. And because it's kind of been not documented very well, you'll do this within your family, within your own family and your generation to generation, which means it's not documented like a normal course. So it's not something you can transfer very easily. So people create their own versions, and you have multiple versions, then of course it's not scalable. And as buyers, as art collectors, our lifestyles have changed. We want to have something Western, right? We want to have maybe a abstract painting, maybe a modern art, and so on. So the need for a folk art to be placed in the house is very not, let's say, desired. And the other thing is we also see a lot of lack of awareness. So I showed maybe 50 different folk arts, but when I started this journey, I only knew 2 or 3 folk arts. And that's very common. Most people don't know all the different folk arts, which means If you're designing something, if you're an interior designer, if you're an architect, if you don't know something, then how are you going to promote it, right? So the lack of awareness is the biggest challenge um, uh, for uh, for promoting this. The other thing which we see also is the dealers, and there's a lot of intermediaries between the artist to the actual the end point. And what they do is they want to increase their profit, so they try to buy it at the lowest price from the artist. And when you do that, what happens? Artist doesn't have, let's say, the support to survive. So what they decide that they leave the industry. So the galleries keep a very high profit, and then drive the cost down, and that results in people not making money. And we have also seen that there's a very limited support from government. There's a lot of places where they have done good, like Madhu Bani. I think it's probably one of the good examples where the government has done a fantastic job to promote the art. There's a lot of work done in Pattachitra for Odisha. Again, the government has done a fantastic job to promote. So there are pockets of, let's say, good stories, but there's also a lot of, let's say, stories which we can say where we haven't got the support by the government on to promote the folk arts. But most importantly, it's the thing is there is no pride factor to own folk art. I think that's where is missing. So when we create that pride factor and we see that it is absolutely something that I want to have, then it creates a need, and it creates a need, and it becomes important. So I'll give you an example here. So if you look at folk art, and now you compare to NFT. I don't know how many of you know NFT, but if you look at NFT, this particular art, which we call as CryptoPunk, 5822, sold for 23 million. Okay, around 17 crores. For me, that is absolutely crazy. Why would somebody buy this for $23 million, which is nothing but the equivalent of 10,000 families of folk artists feeding for the entire year, right? So for us, it's very difficult to comprehend, okay, where is the real sense of art? Where is the art industry going? So is it the natural shift that people want to go into something which is different, or it's something which we can be really proud of? So for us, I think it's very, very important that we bring the focus back to our roots, the culture, and try to create that awareness back and create something which is much more beautiful, simple, easy to understand. So with that, I would like to close saying that to save the artist, we have to save the folk art, the art first. If we don't save the art, of course, artists cannot be saved. So I think we have to do what is needed to save the art first, and artists will automatically get saved. And no one is going to do it. I think we as Indians have to do it ourselves, especially people who are in the art industry, or people who love the art and culture or the Indian culture. We have to do it ourselves. So that's what we're doing from our side. We're not waiting for someone to fix it. We are coming here as an organization. We've got a small team. We can do what we can do. And hopefully there are other people doing the same thing. So I think more people come and do this, we'll make a change. It'll take some time, but it'll come. So that was my last slide. What I'll do now, I will maybe stop talking and get some questions. If you got any feedback, let me know.
There is one question from Shikha ma'am. She has two questions. Firstly, is there any difference between mobile and non-movable paintings apart from medium on the level of composition and its content?
Okay, so there is a small difference, especially in the base, how you prepare the base, right? So if you look at the mural paintings, basically it's wall paintings, right? So you have to prepare the surface for the wall, and then it's putting. But otherwise, there's not a big difference in terms of composition. Composition does not change. It's only the base preparation that changes.
Okay, sir. Our second question is, while working on this folk arts and making an effort to preserve these paintings, do you feel we can maintain the soul of these paintings, which connect on a level of consciousness, cognition, and sense of sacredness while making these paintings.
Absolutely, that is key. If you don't do that, then that connection doesn't come out, right? So that is extremely critical. So when you're trying to preserve, the soul has to also be preserved. Otherwise, it cannot get transferred. You can change the way you do it. The techniques can change, but the soul of the particular folk art, that should not change. And that's what has been happening for the last 3,000, 2,000 years. Look at every painting that has come. The soul hasn't changed. Maybe it has gone from, let's say, animal hair to something else. Maybe it has gone from sticks and bamboos to brushes, but the overall soul hasn't changed.
Sir, in this context, I have a question. Sir, we see Tanjore paintings are confined to a particular genre, king like god, king, queen, etc. Is it not possible to try out any modern stuff in this beautiful artwork, or doing that it will harm the soul or tradition?
Actually, it's not true that it's only Gordon. There are a lot of examples when the kings and even the British generals, and they were actually depicted in Tanjore paintings. So you had portraits of people. You also have, let's say, animals coming in Tanjore paintings. So it's not necessary that it has to be gods, but most of the paintings are around god and goddesses. So there is no, let's say, restrictions. But the thing is, when you take it out and do something else, then of course the people who wants to, it's a customer, right? The customer decides what the artist is going to buy, what the artist is going to create. So if there's a need, then of course the change happens.
Means, can we consider art to be a way of life? For example, I was coming across Madhu Bani painting. It is, I have seen that it was practiced mostly by women who wanted to be one with God, the oneness with God. So how is that spirituality and art connected?
Honestly, I'm not a very spiritual person, so maybe I cannot be an expert here. But for me, when I do paintings myself, I feel that it's like a meditation, right? So you're completely focused. Your entire energy is coming into something that you're creating, and that's what gets transferred. So when I do this with complete sadhana, when I present something back to you as someone who's looking at it, so that energy gets back into you, right? So, and the same thing happens with like example of Madhu Bani paintings. Most of the art, if you look at, is actually driven from women doing this arts, and either it's part of the devotion to God, or it's part of bringing some good luck or good health, and that's how it is connected. And also it's linked to the way we tell stories, because most of the cases there's no books. The only way to get some kind of civilized life was basically on guidelines and rules. So basically these stories are told to create some rules around how we live, how we actually behave in a civilized way. That is basically the background of all these arts, and without the scripts, people are easy to understand from these arts and paintings. So to some extent, yes, absolutely, it's connected.
Thank you, sir. And Shikha ma'am has another question. Can we say that this puppet painting from Andhra traveled to Java?
Yeah, absolutely. See, the challenge is who is going to do it, right? I think the people are looking for any support to revive this art and the tradition to get passed on. And the thing is, there needs to be a support mechanism. There needs to be some kind of organization, or there needs to be some kind of institution that can actually help this. There is no, let's say, restrictions or barriers from the artist itself. It's more, they are so poor that they cannot self-promote it anymore. And that's a challenge. So any organization that can help them, then of course can get transported from one place to other, and people can learn and practice.
Okay. Sir, with so much information of folk art, mostly misinformation, like seeing in the books and Google, like you mentioned about YouTube, how can an emerging artist know what is right and what is wrong?
So it's a very good question, actually. There's a lot of good information available in digital medium. At the same time, there's also a lot of misinformation available. For me, I would say that you always, if you aren't really serious about learning, then use try to find a good teacher, good guru, and because it's not only that the process of learning becomes more effective, but also you don't pick up any bad actors if you have a proper guru. So I would say the combination. So of course, digital medium is going to help you to find the information, find the information about gurus and other people who can do it. But then you always, it's better to go and learn this under somebody who has got a lot of experience, so that they can actually pass it on in the right way. That's very important. So it's not only for art. I think if you're in music industry, if you are in dance, any of the art forms, the focus, meditation, on sadhana, it's actually key to create something beautiful, so that it gives you peace, and also it gives the peace to the people who actually see it. It's very important.
Sir, I just wanted to know, why is there a huge gap between the level of exposure and infrastructure of our artists and Western artists, and how can it be removed where Western artists have huge level of exposure and infrastructure for them? What were the ways to remove it?
Yeah, so it's very it's a very interesting question. Like I said, when we had the folk arts at its peak, it was supported by mainly the kings and the royal families, right? They would actually fund it. They would actually support it. With colonization and the takeover of the kings, you came with a completely new era of the way it was governed, the way people are governed. And suddenly what happened, the people are out of job. It's like losing a job as soon as you have a different kind of leadership. And the people who actually in the industry, they started moving into farming, the other kind of things, and slowly it kind of drifted away. So that's how the gap got widened between what was so much a part of our daily life into now, which is actually not connected at all. And the way we see that is, if we create the need, it'll come back. Now that we have seen so much of change and people are adapting to a lot of the Western style of arts, of course, as the gap has widened. So the challenge is, how do we bring it back? So if you start now looking, if you didn't know about Madhu Bani, maybe you suddenly get attracted. So a lot of people actually get attracted and they start investing again. So that's the journey. It's going to take some time. I think the change will come, but it'll come little not so fast, because the from 18th century to what we are now, we have been losing over a period of 100 200 years. So I hope it's not going to take another 200 years to get back to where we are. But I think the most important thing is the support. If people don't buy, if people don't celebrate the art, then it's difficult to get it back.
So do you think is it mainly due to the colonization these things started?
Yeah, absolutely. I think the reason was there's a lot of influence. Of course, the colonization also brought a lot of techniques into the folk art, but mainly what happened was people found pride in buying a Western art, because that's how we have been brainwashed the last 200 years, right? So we've been brainwashed to have something which is more Western, and something local folk arts is not attractive to keep in to buy, to invest. So that's the brain shift that needs to happen. That see, it will happen, because what happens is when art becomes rare, it becomes more sort of, right? So if you go with this situation now, most of the folk arts will disappear, if it will become rare, and then it becomes more sought out. So hopefully it doesn't go to that extent, but that's what we want to avoid.
Shivakumar Venkataraman sir has one question. He has asked, what all the art ministry doing in individual states to promote this precious arts? I also had the same question. What type of policies and programs do you think the government must implement now?
I think government is doing to some extent. They do run workshops. What government has done is they have issued artisan cards to artists, so they can actually use artisan cards. They get kind of some kind of fundings. The problem is the bureaucracy to get an artisan card. It's extremely difficult. So maybe the opportunity here is, how do we make this easier? How do you get the benefits more accessible for artists? And I think one thing is creating the opportunity for doing workshops and things like that. But my experience is, don't try to support the artist. The most important thing is support the art. So if you try to promote the art, artists will get supported automatically. Because when you try to promote art, the demand increases. The demand increases, artists get a job. But if you go and give artists funding and give them more work, then more subsidies and things like that, it actually makes a short-term solution. But if you do invest to create more awareness, to create more need for this art, automatically the artist will get a job. I think that's where the shift has to happen.
Sir, how can we increase that need? How can Indian arts crafts can be used for employment generation? What the ways you think? How can we generate the needs, and what sort of employment can we give?
Generating needs is not, let's say, we have to do multiple things, right? The need becomes, for me, something becomes a need when I know about it. I'll give an example. We had a workshop we did in Mumbai recently, right? So we had a lot of paintings. We also had workshop. So what we found was, when someone comes to the exhibition, they see the paintings, but they don't know what is behind in creating the paintings. So they just go glance and go to the next one. They go to the next one. They just walk around and they leave. But when we had the workshop, we had people watching how a Pattachitra painting is done, how they create the sketching, how they create the base. When you're actually following the process, you become so engaged in the storytelling in the process, that we found that people would like to acquire that. I want this now. I like this. I've seen how it is done. It's so delicate. So much work goes behind this art, and I want to take this home, right? And that's how people buy. You get emotionally connected. So the buying process is more about connecting emotionally to a particular, and then you buy it. So for us, that's where we should focus. It's more about the awareness, but also more about the process of how it is done. The more people know about it, then I think they'll appreciate, and then the need will come automatically.
Sir, what is your take on ethnicity and marginalization of arts and crafts?
Why do you say marginalization?
Means we just separating that arts, we just neglecting that arts due to that ethnicity, that because we neglect that ethnic community.
If you say marginalization, I would say, if you compare the music, dance, and art, there's already a marginalization within that the art, right? People prefer certain things compared to other things. So I think it's more about the lifestyle choices, what you've seen in the past, and what you actually exposed to. If you're not aware of something, then of course you can think that it's marginalized. but it's more the exposure and the knowledge that is missing. I think that's the main cause.
Sir, you mentioned about pandemic. Now, how did this COVID crisis affected our artists? I want to know in your personal experience, what have you witnessed?
Actually, it's made things worse. I think the deterioration was happening. Like I said, it's trending down, but the pandemic made it worse. It actually accelerated the process of extinction out faster, because a lot of people have lost the opportunity to sell their creativity. Some have been, let's say, using this opportunity to create more artworks, to create an inventory, hoping that it will actually start selling when the tourist and the industry comes back. But also, I think the pandemic has made things worse, because a lot of artists are left this and went and found other jobs. And it could be labor jobs, it could be farming, back to farming. So I think it has made it worse for me. I know so many people, so many artists who come to us for work and selling the artworks. We have now more than 500 artists in our gallery. We try to tell and support as much as possible, but definitely we can see there's an increase in people trying to find ways to sell and or to leave the industry.
Okay, Shivakumar Venkatraman sir said that it is a great thing what Mr. Senthil is doing, and can this sort of educative programs be propagated to art colleges where practical aspects can be intertwined with the theory?
Yeah, absolutely. So we do have to find ways to mix this together. I think more institution like what you guys are doing now is needed.